In this segment of the Breckenridge design project, I'm going to design the kitchen island. You can see a close-up of this in the rendering. It's a waterfall island. It has a thick countertop, and let's go ahead and get into the program and take a look at how to do that. To begin, I'm going to use the base cabinet tool and place 3 different base cabinets just out in this area, and I'm actually going to build the island in reverse order so you can see exactly the way it's going to look, and then we'll rotate it. If I press F7 and toggle to the 3D view, you can see our cabinets that are facing us. And I'm just going to press Shift F6 on the keyboard and do a little bit of design work. First of all, I'm going to select all 3 of these cabinets and make a setting by opening them up. And first of all, I'm going to set the depth of these cabinets to be 33 inches. I'm going to mark that they have a flat back, and then I'm going to accept the rest of these defaults and select OK. That creates a very deep box, and I'm going to create a custom countertop that will go over the back of these to form the overhang and the waterfall island. On the end cabinet, I'm going to click on that and I'm going to resize it to 21 inches. And then on the other end cabinet, I'm going to make this a 36-inch cabinet for the sink base. Also for the sink base, I'm going to use a apron style sink, and I'm going to open that cabinet up and make a few changes here. I'm going to set the height to be 27 inches, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to remove the countertop. The thickness is currently set to 1.5. I'll remove that at 0. And then on the front of the cabinet, I'm going to select the drawer and press the delete key and then close the dialog. You can see the update in 3D. On the cabinet on the right, I want to put a panel on the end of it, and on the fronts and sides, I'm going to choose the right side, and you'll notice a feature called custom face or match front in this panel. I'm going to use the custom face, and I'm going to actually then rotate around so we can see what we're doing. Right now there is a single item called a blank item, and I'm just going to come in here and press the add new, and I'm going to choose a door panel and set the dimension to 13.5 inches. Select OK, and then on this upper blank area I'm now going to convert that to also being a door panel, and now I can browse into the library and choose the door style that I want. To make it easy, I'm just going to grab one out of my library. I'm just going to use a simple frame door, and then we'll just do the same thing on the other face item. Browse into the library, and I'm just going to use the same door style. You can apply these in the 3D view. Sometimes a little faster. You can browse in the library and grab those 2 things. Once I've got that set, I can close it, and I can change the color of that door panel in the 3D. I'm going to maximize my 3D view. Under the 3D navigation tools, there is a 3D center camera on point. I'm going to choose the sink base. As I rotate around now, that becomes the center of my rotation. I'm going to use the material eyedropper, select the cabinet color that I want, and apply that to the 2 panels. I'll then toggle on the vector view so you can easily see those 2 panels in this view. And then I'm going to grab this cabinet and make a bank of drawers. Click on the front and use the add new, and I'm going to choose a drawer, set it to be 9 inches, and then on the bottom face item I'll just then change that from a drawer. Select OK. I'll split my screen by pressing Shift F6, and I'm just going to grab these 2 cabinets, and I'm going to use the copy and reflect about you'll find in the lower menu, and then we'll just rotate that around the other cabinets. Again, I'm building this island in reverse. And let's go in and maximize our 3D view and change back to the orbit. And now I want to grab an apron sink, place that, and then we'll do the custom countertop on the back side. I'm going to place my appliances, at least the sink. I'm going to press Shift F6 on the keyboard. In the 2D view, inside of my library, I've created a project called the Breckenridge, and I've created an appliance and fixtures folder. Just for the purpose of this video, I can use this as a shortcut. These are items you can find in the core bonus library. I'm going to place my sink in this 2D view. Just grab it, come out here, and I'm just going to position that in this view. You can see it in the 3D view, and then I'm going to grab the faucet as long as I'm in here, and I'll just place this out here. I'll need to move that up once I get the custom countertop, and then we'll place the dishwasher in the cabinet adjacent to the sink, and the way the dishwasher just replaces that box. That way I don't have to create a custom countertop off of it. And then in the 3D view, I'm going to use this cabinet on the left hand side of the sink as a pull out. So I'm just going to click on the drawer here and click delete. And I'm also going to go into the label tab and specify that it is a pull out PO. And then if you want to insert the width, You can be object specific, and I'll just choose the width. That way if you change the width of it, the label will be dynamic and update. To rotate this island into place, I'm just going to shift select these objects. You could also draw a marquee around it, a little more difficult when it's on angle. We'll just rotate this around. I'm then going to use the end-to-end dimension tool to click and place the dimensions so that we can then position the island. And to begin with, I'm going to adjust these dimensions. I want to make sure that this is going out to the handle off of the cook range, and if I zoom in a little bit, it's going on to the countertop. Once I have those positioned correctly, again, I'm just going to kind of shift select these items one more time, and then I'm going to click on that dimension, and in this case I'm going to set that to be exactly 45 inches. And then with the item still selected, I'm going to click on this dimension, and I'm going to make that 47 3/8. Once that's positioned, I can now move on and take a look at adding that custom countertop. First step I'm going to do before I place that countertop is I'm going to pull the apron sink back so that it's even with the cabinet box, the dashed line. Then using the custom countertop tool, I'm going to drag out a custom countertop, select it, rotate it so that it matches the 45-degree angle. And then using the dimensions, I'm going to set it to be 24 inches in width. And then on this length, I'll set it to be 132 inches. With it still selected, we'll center that on the sink base. And then we'll go ahead and open up that countertop. And I'm going to set the thickness to be 6 inches. Change the height to be absolute in measurement from the subfloor at 42 3/4. Select OK, and now I can position this over the top of the cabinets, and I'm going to use an end-to-end dimension. We'll just zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to set this dimension. If I select the countertop, I'm going to set this to be 7 3/8, and I'm going to choose the move, the fourplex handle here, to actually move that and position it. Select OK, and now that's positioned, and then the next thing I'll do is I'm just going to slide that faucet up. In the 3D view, you can see the countertop, and if you rotate the view slightly, you can see that the apron sink is only 27 inches high and it has a gap. One way to solve that is with a big filler. I can easily create that effect. I'm just going to pull the sink base back 6 inches. I'm going to create a copy of that cabinet and pull it back since it already has the same width, and then we'll just snap that back into place. I may open that up, and on the front of the cabinet just simply remove or change the face item type to be a blank area. Select OK, and then back in the 3D view, you can easily come up here and pull that up to the height. We could have done that in the dialog. And then one more change we're going to need to make is creating a custom countertop, because I still have a gap in this area. Let me split my screen, and what I'm going to do in this case is select that cabinet that we had selected, and what I'm going to set up is a custom countertop. And one of the issues that I'm going to face is the larger countertop won't allow me to probably generate one automatically below it. So I'm just going to grab the cabinet off to the right, use this generate custom countertop in the lower left hand menu, and then I'm just going to use that cabinet or that countertop, and I'm just going to pull it over and use that, and then we'll just stretch that to the right dimension and then pull that back so that it's only over the other cabinet. And let's go ahead and raise the height of it up after we get it positioned like we did earlier, and I'm just going to set that right on that box, and I'll just open it and set the dimensions then. So inside the dialog, I'm just going to enter in 36 inches from the finished floor, select OK, and if we've done our math right, that should then set that correctly. And then the next thing we need to do is grab our faucet, see if I can grab that in 3D and pull that up. And again, what we can do is from finished floor, we can set that to be 36. I may need to move it over then in plan view so that it doesn't set into that countertop, and it looks okay. Back into the 3D view, we rotate around. The next step is to create the end waterfall components off of here. Bring up my 3D view, and I'm going to use a custom countertop to generate that. Split my screen here using Shift F6. I'm going to select this countertop. The first thing I want to do actually before I create a copy of this is I'm going to set the fill to be a similar color, as the cabinet boxes, and I'm going to set a transparency of that so I can still see through it. Once I've got that in place, I'm going to use the copy tool and copy in place, zoom in, and I'm going to select that countertop and just pull it back a little bit. It's still selected, and I'm going to zoom in, turn on my temporary dimensions, select the edge, and in this case I'm going to set it to be 3 inches in width, and then open the countertop up and set the dimensions in this case. I'll just change the thickness to be 36 inches, and then we'll subtract 6 inches, the thickness of the original countertop. Select OK, let the program generate the waterfall. While the item is still selected, I'll use the copy and reflect about in the lower left hand corner, and then select that and maximize the 3D view. Come around, you can see the waterfall. Tilt the view a little bit, open up the library browser, and I'm going to use a product from Cambria called Sans. Use the search tool, find that, and I'm going to paint that based on the objects for the main island, and then I'll just need to rotate around a little bit so I can get that little countertop where the faucet's located, and again we'll just grab that material and apply that. Next component will be adding the lighting, and then I'll do a section view to show the details and elevation dimensions. The next component for the island will be to place the pendant lights. And you can see in the rendering I've got these positioned with 4 lights. In the 3D library you can download a number of bonus lighting categories. There's also a number of pendants in the core library. And if you browse down in the 3D library, there's a category for lighting and there's additional lighting, and these are libraries that you can download. Back into the program, let me just minimize a couple of these views. We've got our kitchen set up, and I'm going to place these lights in the 2D view. In the library, in the core catalog, as I mentioned, there's a category under lighting called pendant lights. In my case, I'm going to use a particular light that I know called contemporary pendant. I'm not real sure where it is, so I'm just going to use the search tool, and once I locate it, I'm just going to grab that light. Before I actually place that pendant light, I'm going to change my layer set from the kitchen and bath set to the electrical set. And mainly I'm doing that because I don't want my electrical to display on my kitchen and bath set when I send it out to my construction drawings and my layout sheet. Once I change that, I'm going to come in and place the first pendant light. Once you've placed that, you can use the center tool, center it on the countertop, and once it's centered in there, I'm going to use the multiple copy tool that you'll find in the lower left hand section of your menu. I'm going to create 3 different copies of this that will be evenly distributed, and I'm just going to pull those down to approximately the other end, and then I'm going to move in and take a section view. Using the back clip cross section tool, I'm going to come in and create a slice right through the island. I'll zoom in, and to position these lights, I'm going to use the W on the keyboard and just draw a line arbitrarily to begin with, and then I'm going to use my end-to-end dimension and position that line. Just come off the line, come down to the floor, select the line, and I'm just going to put in 77 inches. And now I'm going to use that line and click on each of these lights and just come down and snap them onto that line for positioning. And the last light here, pull that down, and now I'll just pull this line back because I want to use it as my dimension line. To place the center line dimension, first of all, I'm going to change my annotation set to the appliance center lines, and using my center line tool, let's make sure that on this electrical is enabled, and I'm just going to remove these other objects for the time being. Select OK, and now I can come over to the wall and drag out the center line dimension, and if I group select each one of these lights, I can now then position this exactly, and I'll just use 80 inches in this case, and that will move all of the lights into position. I can clean that dimension up a little bit, just pull off the diamond. I'm going to go back into the center line and remove the electrical and put back the lines and ends. Using that center line, I'm going to come in and use that center line tool and drag out a dimension for the 2 components here for the sink and the dishwasher. And I'm just going to use the diamond and pull that up and place that onto the end of the cabinet. And then I'm going to change my layer set to be the cabinet boxes and my tool to be the manual dimension. I'm going to drag a dimension through the cabinet boxes, and we'll pull that down for the boxes. And then I'm going to use the end-to-end dimension and go through the entire island here. And we'll pull that down and zoom in and do a little bit of cleanup on these dimensions. So the first thing is my countertop edge did not get picked up, and it's because of the way we drew that. I'm going to use the line tool, W on the keyboard, and I come in and draw a line so that I can now dimension to that, the end-to-end dimension. Let's start with that first. I'm going to pull that to the end, and when I drew that line I was off slightly, so I'm going to select the line, click on the dimension, and I'm just going to make that 129. Select OK. With that line selected, try and use the copy and reflect about the sink and the base cabinet here. Select the dimension, grab the diamond, and pull that off onto the end. And now I'll just pull the diamond off onto that cabinet. And then I'll do the same with the centerline dimension. I'm just going to pull that off to the line, and I'm going to add a diamond dimension onto that one. For the cabinet boxes, we'll want to get that 3-inch dimension, so I'm just going to also use that, pull the dimension down, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Click on the dimension line, use the diamond, and now I'll just pull that dimension down. There are times when you do your dimensions and it may not pick up what you want. In this case I used a CAD line. Other places you might use a CAD point. Either way you can clean it up. You can also click on the dimension extensions. I can pull that up, snap that into place, and clean up that dimension. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Next I'll use the end-to-end dimension and create the vertical dimension. Simply pull that dimension line off. Again, it won't necessarily pick up if you try to take this diamond up to the countertop, so I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to draw a small CAD line in here, click on the dimension, place that. Again, I was off slightly, so I'll select the line, choose the dimension, put in our 6 inches, and then I'll just pull that dimension out so that it's offset. And then use the extension line and pull that in to the desired length. As I zoom out a little bit, one of the things that I like to do on my section views to clean it up, you'll notice my cabinets over here on the left. When I created that section, it cut through the box and you can see the shelving. I like to use a CAD box over the top of that with a cross box. And I'll just zoom in here, and I'm going to create a cross box over the top of that cabinet, maybe leaving the door exposed. And I'll just kind of zoom in and position that exactly. You can also use the color eyedropper. Notice that mine is a white box. If I select the box, open it up, I can grab that dialog box, and for the fill style, change the color, use the eyedropper, match the color of the box, and then it will match it exactly. And we'll just do the same thing down here. Let's take this box, copy it, pull it down, and I'll just actually do the upper part of the box and not the toe kick. And then I'll use the color eyedropper to get the color on that by opening it up, changing the color, again the eyedropper, grab the brown, and select OK. And then if I send that out to my layout sheet in color, it will then have the appropriate color fill on those cross boxes. Here's a view with all of my dimensions cleaned up. I actually used a white cross box here. On my layout sheet, what I've done with that island is I've made it very small, and I actually used black and white in this case. I sent it out as a smaller scale than the main wall elevation. As I return back to the floor plan view, I'm going to select that camera, open it up. I'm going to give it the name, and then in the plan display I'm going to also give it a callout number, and I have been using the callout size of 14 to keep them consistent. And then the next thing I'm going to do, let's zoom in here a little bit. You notice that I have dimensions for the island, and I want to show my work triangle. One of the ways I do that, first of all, I'm going to check my current CAD layer underneath the CAD default settings, current CAD layer, and it's CAD kitchen and bath. My textile is a 1/2 inch textile. That becomes important when I draw that triangle out and turn on the dimensions, because if you find that they're gigantic, then you'll know that your textile probably is off and not at a 1/2 inch. I'm just going to come in here, use the line tool, and create a rough approximation of that triangle. I'm not going to get too close to that camera because I don't want to snap on it yet. Once I have the triangle positioned, Now I can kind of pull this out to the center line of the cook range and the center line of the refrigerator, and then I'll just pull this back approximately, open up the triangle, and on the line style you can show length. And a lot of times what I'll also do is for the fill style come in here and make it maybe an angle hatch, and I always set it to be transparent so you can see behind it, and maybe the spacing, just try 4 or 3 in this case to kind of make it positioned. And then you can see, I may have to move my camera over here a little bit, and I'll select this camera and slide it over a little bit as well. Zoom out, pull it over. Moving these cameras has no effect on it as long as you don't move it past the point of cutting. And in this case you can see my triangle and the recommendations from the NKBA, typically no more than 27 aggregate feet, and it looks like we're in that range. So that's one way you can create your triangle. The other thing that you can do is create your floor pattern. I'm going to use the CAD box and draw a box out that will represent our flooring. Pull my view over a little bit. I'm going to open up this CAD box and make a few settings for the fill style. First of all, for the line style, I'm going to remove it. I'm going to scroll down, find a blank line style so there's no line on it. On the fill style, I'm going to choose a, well, here's the options you can choose from, but I'm going to actually choose a custom style. I'm going to browse out to the pattern files, and I'm going to choose the flooring pattern. And inside that file there are a number of patterns you can choose from. I've determined that one of them is this wood 3, and I'm going to change the spacing for that wood pattern, change the angle, the line weight. I'm going to set my transparency on this, and I'm actually going to set it pretty high because I want to be able to see through it, and then select OK. That will then create the pattern, and I'm just going to rotate that around to actually match the direction of that flooring. And now you can kind of reposition this. If you want to use the break on your keyboard number 3, you can create a break and kind of resize this and position it however you want that flooring to display. Again, you can kind of pull these around and create any shape. That way you can show the style of flooring in your floor plan view. One more component for the island. I'm going to add my seating, and again inside my library browser I've added a folder here for the Breckenridge design, and I've created a furniture folder in here, and inside that folder I've created my seating. In fact, I've even created the entire island that can be grouped along with the electrical and all of the components. And I'll just scroll down here, find my kitchen bar seating, grab those. These are individual items that you can place out of the, go ahead and place this off to the side. These are individual items that you can come in and place, and then you can go back into your 3D view and see that. The scene will probably be a little bit dark since we don't have electrical, so let's quickly, other than the bar lighting, let's go ahead and place our electrical recess lights. And I'm going to set my default electrical light to be a 6-inch can. So I'm going to go in and choose the default light to be a 6-inch can. I'm going to place my first can after I change my layer set to be electrical. I'm just going to place my first can right in this area over here. And once I have that first can positioned, I'm going to use my multiple copy tool. And let's open this up, and in the offset I'm going to set that to be 54 inches. And on the alternate behavior, we can do a matrix copy basically, or an array copy. 54 by 62. Zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to use the right mouse button, come down here and click the electrical cans this way, and come over here and click that way. That's going to place all of those recessed cans. We go back into the 3D view and just kind of point and click in the direction. You can see that adding these accessories like the bar stools really kind of helps the scene. If I move back into my floor plan, I've got a layer set that I have for the interior floor plan set that I call the interior set. And in my library, you can browse through and find different accessories and then make the changes or add to your design. And in this case I have a dining room table, and I'm just going to grab that. This is actually a dining room table that I assembled and built the table myself just using polyline solids, and then place some flower arrangements on here. And then I have an accessories folder inside of my project folder, and a couple things. One is, here's a flower. I'll just simply come over here, place that off to the countertop, and then there's the kitchen counter accessories. This may need to be positioned because it's kind of a big block. I'm just going to slide over here, place it, and then come over here and position that. Go back into the 3D view once I have that positioned, and you can see really what a difference it makes when you create the design with the accessories. Those are all individual components that I put into my library from either the core library or downloading them from the 3D library. Looks like I need to grab my flower here and pull it up a little bit, and can really make a difference. I've kind of got two different images here. One is of the plain rendering, and you can see that the kitchen looks nice. It's got most of the attributes, and then when you switch over and show the fully accessorized kitchen, this really kind of makes a difference in being able to sell the job. And typically what I'll do is find my favorite accessories, either group them, save them into my folder for my favorites, or I'll browse out to the 3D library and grab individual components that I like. For the layout construction drawing, what I've done for that is sent out all the elevations that we've created, the rendering and the floor plan. And I've also put on a schedule, and including the cabinets and the fixtures. Let's take a look at how to create those. If I go back into my floor plan, what I do is I actually create these underneath a CAD detail, and if I go in and create a new CAD detail, I'm just going to call this cabinet schedule, and that kind of creates a workspace that I can then position things in. And underneath the tools, I'm going to come in and underneath the schedule place a cabinet schedule, and we'll just click and place this schedule. This is going to be everything in the entire design, so let's select the schedule, open it up, and first of all I'm going to choose all from the all floors and just choose for the kitchen room. That will then isolate that for the kitchen only. And for the columns, what I'm going to do is, these are available columns and these are columns that are already over here, and I'm going to use the 3D elevation, add that into the design, and then I'm going to come over and modify this. In some cases I don't necessarily care about the number of the cabinet. Floor I don't care about because it's only for the kitchen. Width, depth, height, description, code. So you can kind of come in here and remove items that you don't want to have. Once you have that dialed in, select OK, and then your cabinet schedule will then update with that view. Zoom out a little bit and you can see all of the different cabinets in here, and it gives you the 3D elevation view on it. Over in the CAD detail management, I'll create one more, and in this case we'll call it the fixture and appliance schedule, and we'll just do the same thing. We'll come into our tools, schedules, place the fixture schedule, and once I click on this we'll open it up, and I'm going to choose the 3D elevation of it, add that over here, and then just come over and clean up the different components that I want to remove out. And let's move this up to the top so you can kind of move these around. Again, I'm just going to isolate this to the kitchen. Here are objects to include, so I'm just going to exclude some of these items. So I've got appliances and plumbing selected. Choose OK. Zoom out a little bit. Now these two schedules are things that I can send out to the layout sheet, and let's take a look at kind of the process of quickly doing that. This is a layout sheet that I've created for the kitchen. It has a combination of images, elevations, and the schedules. I'm going to show you the technique that I've used to create this. The layout sheet is a 24 by 36 inch drawing sheet, and the first thing I'm going to do is I have the elevation open for the main wall, and I'm going to come over and select send to layout, and at this point I'm going to choose what scale I send the layout at, and in this case I'm going to send it out at 1/2 inch. This is a quite a large drawing. I'm going to make sure that copy of active layer set is not checked, and then I'm going to send out the current screen. New in X8 and newer is the ability to send out a live view, which means anytime you do an update in your plan, such as move a window, change a cabinet, it will then update it. You can do it on demand or you can do it as an always update. The plot lines is going to give you the traditional black and white view with the line weights, and then if you check color fill, then that will send it as color. With the color fill and plot lines, that's going to be the most CPU intensive and take the longest amount of time. Live view and always update will also be intensive if you have that layout open. So I'm going to use the live view, update on demand, send it out at 1/2 inch scale. Once the layout is on, the image is on the layout, I'm just going to come in here and resize the viewport and scale that down, and then I'm just going to slide that down into the corner over here, and then I'll use the rich text tool and create the information about that. And in this case I'm just going to say main wall. I'll select the text, underline it, and then on the following line change my scale back down to 1/8 inch. It may be difficult to read this, and then I'll just say 1/2 inch scale, and then on the text highlight it and right justify that, and then close the dialog, and just kind of pull this in and then reposition that text down below. And let's go ahead and pull this up a little bit. Now for the next elevation, let's go back to the main wall. I'm going to close that camera, and on the second wall elevation, let's go ahead and send that out to the layout sheet. So again, file, send to layout, and in this case again I'll do the live view on demand, and then I'm going to change the scale to 3/8 inch. Send that out to the layout sheet. Same one. Select the layout viewport, rescale it, slide that over here, and then on the text for, let me just make a small change in here. I'm just going to copy this and resize it, and then I'll add a call out in here. Let's just pull that in. I want to add a call out in here using the call out tool, and I'm just going to come in here and give it a name. K1. It's going to be using the circle, and on the text style let's make sure that it's using something like 1/4 inch. So let's go in and choose edit this, and I'm just going to change my default text style to be 1/4 inch, and now all items will have 1/4 inch scale. On my attributes I like to use an arrow that is large, filled, and then I'll change this to black so I can set that up. Select OK and close that, and we'll just select on that item and pull that over. Now I'm going to select both of these items, use the copy tool, and then I'll just create a copy of that and pull it up for the other wall elevation, and we'll just do some modifications in here. And on the call out we'll call that K3, and then on the text open that back up, and I'm just going to call this wall elevation, and in this case it's 3/8, and we'll close that. And it's pretty small to have color in here. I'm going to open that back up, and instead of having it as a live view I'm just going to use plot lines, and that will convert it black and white. Okay, back into the wall elevation camera. Let's close that. Go ahead and save the layout. In the island section elevation, let's go ahead and send that out to the layout, and in this case I'm going to send that out again just as black and white. I'm going to actually send it out as 1/4 inch scale. Once it's on the layout sheet, kind of reposition it, pull it over next to the other wall elevation, kind of pull in and shape the layout box. A lot of times if you zoom in here, this is part of the section elevation from the rest of the structure, and what I might do is just draw a white CAD box over the top of that back in the camera view. That way it's tied in that view. And I've done that actually in my final drawings. And then we'll go ahead and copy the text box that we used previously and then edit that. Let's pull that over, a little bit tight in here, and give this a name, and then open up the text and make the same edit here. And I actually need to change the scales because this is 1/4 inch. Back over in the floor plan view, you'll notice that it updated the cameras with the automatic text in here. That's sending it to page 1. You can change that by opening up the camera on plan display. Notice that the text below the line is automatic. You can just remove that and clean that up. And I'm going to do that for the other cameras here. Once I have those cleaned up, notice my cabinet labels have a circle with a call out. That's generated in my cabinet schedule. And in my cabinet schedule, if I open it up, there is the option to use call out for the label, and it's a circle. If I turn that off, it's going to use the cabinet nomenclature in the floor plan. And that's the way I like to have my floor plan. I'm actually going to now send that out to the layout sheet. And I'm going to send this out at 1/4 inch. sorry, at 1/2 inch. I should have room for that. And then I'm going to just send in the current view, and then we'll need to reshape that. Once it's on the layout sheet, let's kind of zoom over here, and then I will rotate that so that it's against the border sheet in more of a traditional view. Let me just pull that up a little bit, and then we'll pull this side over so we can see the corner of the cabinet, and then we'll just slide this up and over into position. Again, I may crop that off and just let it sit. Let me just tighten this up a little bit, make sure I get my floor covering in there, and then I'll resize the top of this and get it approximately where I want it. Just get that dimension. Take this text and create a copy of it and pull it over. And in this case, let's go ahead and open up that text, and now the next element we'll do is we'll send the cabinet schedule to the layout sheet. Select that and send it out. I'm going to give it a much smaller. I'm going to give it something like 3/16. We'll see how that looks. Send that out, and then I'll pull that schedule off to the side over here and see if it will fit as we stretch that down. And then next we'll go to the fixture and appliances and send that out the same way at 3/16 of an inch, and then position that as well. And I'll just slide that over and then pull that down and make sure we have the rest of the schedule. Now, I'm not sure I have everything on the cabinet schedule. Let's zoom out here and see what we have. The last one is the hopper door. So let's go back into our layout sheet and make sure that we have that hopper door in here. I may need to change the scale of that. Let's pull the schedule down. So I either need to slide this up and figure out how to get more of the floor plan in there, and or turn off the seating in the floor plan. And I think that's what I'll do. So I'll just double click on this, go in and turn that layer off simply by choosing the object properties. Turn that layer off for interior furniture, and then back in the layout sheet I now can get that schedule in the way I want it. Next, I'm going to pull over the rendering. I've got my folder open on my second monitor. I'm just going to pull that over into the screen and then resize that, actually open it up and just type in the sizing of this, and I'm just going to give it something like 15 to make it small enough. Pull it over to an area that I want. And again, you can just simply use the resize handle in that case. And then finally, in the library, I've got my user catalog for this plan. I've created a notes folder in here, and I have cabinet notes, and I'm going to place those cabinet notes inside the plan and finish that up. Here's a view of the completed layout sheet. I spent a little bit more time organizing it, and I put a title in for the name of the plan, for kitchen plan and elevations, the address information, and made it look as you will be able to download it in the sample plan files on our web. That completes the layout sheet and plan finalization for the Breckenridge kitchen. It also is the last segment in the video series. We began the video with plan dimensions, we laid out the cabinets, did the wall elevations and sections, completed the island, also did a section with that, and the next segment we'll focus on will be the master bath.